Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, today's episode is going to be something that hopefully we get to do a lot more of in the near future. Certainly hearing from CIG and the AMA that piracy and those game loops are something of a priority, and information running is something of a priority as well. We're always kind of looking for ways to kind of explore this career and explore this, gameplay loop, which, depending on who you ask, both exists and doesn't exist. And one of the things that we did is we tested with mining, specifically with the rock. Could you basically blow up a rock? Would it drop its cargo? That sort of thing. We wanted to see what the limits were, because of course a lot of people are out there and they're bragging it up about how much money they're making with a fully loaded rock. Be a lot better if you could actually hunt down a fully loaded rock and kind of blow it up, and if the cargo just spawned out on the ground, or even a portion thereof, because if you kind of look at the money and the actual cargo size that it occupies, there's potentially some very great rewards in that field. And that was something that we wanted to explore, and we found some interesting things in our explorations of this. Now, one of the first things that we found, of course, is just the logistics of getting a rock to the location that you want to get it to. There are a lot of little difficulties, little challenges. Sometimes ships cooperate, sometimes they don't. Sometimes their lifts have the little lips that extend down to the ground. Sometimes they're just not there. So mining is going to be problematic, and getting a vehicle to the location that you specifically want to get it to is kind of an added hump in the journey that a lot of players may not be all that excited to take on. And so chances are what you're going to see with people using rocks is that they're probably more likely going to deploy them at places like Bezdek or Ryder or wherever on site where they plan to do their mining, and they're just going to kind of flow around those mining locations. For a lot of players, that it represents the fewer points of failure for the game to kind of fall short and disappoint them. It's less likely that, if you load up a vehicle onto a ship and then you have to fly to your next location, every minute that you're out there traveling is another potential bug that could come up and bite you in the ass. So it's largely going to be easier to probably deploy that rock from the mining location where you're at. So if you're looking to hunt someone in a rock, chances are you're going to find plenty of them around the more lucrative mining locations, the HDMSs and the other, Shubin and ArcCorp mining. You're probably going to find a lot of them kind of hovering around those locations. Now, if you think, okay, well, great, now I know where to go, stealing from them is not really what we would ideally like it to be. Now, one of the faster ground vehicles, and oddly enough, one of the stealthiest of the ground vehicles, is the Dragonfly. The Dragonfly has a lot of good things going for it. Not only that, it's got size 1 gimbaled guns, which means you can auto-track with the turrets. It comes with the ballistic shotguns standard, but you can swap those to any size 1 gun you want. So getting out there, having a fast vehicle that can locate rocks on site and basically blow them up is not difficult at all. In fact, it is quite easy. The Dragonfly is, oddly enough, perfectly suited for this. It's extremely easy to use. It's fast as hell. It doesn't have the same terrain restrictions that a ground-based vehicle has because it hovers over the ground. It has gimbaled size 1 guns, and tracking down and blowing up a rock are no issue. You still have access to tab and sensor mode, and you can just ping out and find things. So tracking down a rock is not hard. It is actually criminally easy to track down and destroy a rock. However, the problem is that currently in our testing, the rock did not spawn a cargo crate for at least a portion of the minerals that it did contain. And when we did blow up a few rocks, the wreckage of the rock remains, and for a brief period, you can still access the cargo hatch on the back of the rock. It generally breaks into two big pieces. If you go to the rear end of it, you can still open up the cargo hatch, and for a brief instant I was able to access it, but it despawns extremely quickly. I mean, to the point where it was blown up, I rushed to it, maybe 30 seconds. I opened up the hatch and I briefly saw the inventory flip up, and then the whole part just despawned. So my feeling is that until we get iCache or, something that allows the server to maintain these assets for longer without taking a huge performance hit, blowing up rocks to steal their cargo, really not a good idea, because all you're really in the end doing is you're marauding. I mean, piracy is there to make money, not to just make mayhem. I mean, mayhem is the after effect. What you want is money. And so at this point, you're just gaining crime stat if you're in a zone where the satellites are active, and you're not getting anything for it. In fact, you're probably just wasting money and wasting time. But for the patient among you and for the tricksters amongst you, there is a very, very interesting possibility, but unfortunately it is probably a door that CIG is going to close sooner rather than later. But there's a funny little quirk with the rock right now, which is that anyone can access its cargo. Anybody can access the cargo of a rock. So even if you don't own the rock, even if you didn't spawn the rock, even if you're not in the party, you can walk up to the rear of a rock and just open up its cargo. Anyone can. So technically speaking, if you were a bit of a trickster, you could technically hunt down a rock that's mining, sneak up on it, and while it's mining the next rock, while it's sitting there and the guy's sitting there, kind of focused on, getting into the minerals, you could probably sneak up on foot stealthily if you had, a backpack on, one of the backpack sets of armor, something like the Novikov or the Pembroke. You could basically go in and you could pull the cargo out of the rear of the rock as the person's mining, and then just kind of hide it in your backpack or on your person, then run away, get back on your space bike, and either sell it on site and take 0 crime stat hit, or you could just kind of keep following the rock around if they're completely unconscious of the fact that you're doing this, and just keep kind of hitting them again and again and again until you fill up your personal cargo, and then just kind of go back to the landing site, sell it, and then just take off. So that's one of the ways that potentially you could abuse this. Now, of course, I have to state that we are talking about 311 here. We are talking about a game that, jokes aside, is in a bit of a rough state. We like to use the term pre-alpha a lot. The servers are a little bit janky as well. Obviously, things have matured somewhat. The population has shown up to play the game, and results are mixed. But right now, that seems to be possible. That you can basically go up to anybody's rock and just simply open up the cargo and steal it. So if you're looking for some fun, getting into a dragonfly, hunting people down, hunting down ships, and potentially stealing the minerals that a rock leaves, or that that a rock has in its cargo, seems to be working. Now, one of the things that I found, that I discovered is, if you want to make a quick entry and exit from your Dragonfly on a low gravity moon, which most moons are, you can quickly hop down from your bike and then kind of quickly hop back up to remount a bike, so you don't even have to shut the engines off to bring it down to the ground. But on planets, it may not be that easy. Right now, I think with the Dragonfly, there are a number of issues, one of which is not being able to set your distance from terrain, which, depending on the terrain, it can be very problematic. So I think that, and putting it into a ship as well is extremely problematic, because as your ship kind of reads the interior of or as your Dragonfly reads the interior of your ship as you're going to park it into your ship, as the terrain, it tries to boost itself up off of that terrain, and so it can drive your head into the ceiling of your ship. So that's a bit of a problem. But if you're just looking for something fun to do, a way to make money, a way to steal goods, and potentially not get any crime stat while doing it, though people will be complaining about you in local if they figure out what you're doing, unless you're super, super stealthy. This is kind of an interesting possibility. Also, on the plus side, for the rock owners, if you're out there with a few friends, having something like a Dragonfly around to hunt down and scout out different mineral locations is very easy with the Dragonfly, because it is far less, I don't want to say a victim of terrain, but it is far less taxed by the terrain that it traverses over. Space bikes do still have quite a number of issues in their movement and how they function in the game, but now they got a use too, which is something that I'm kind of a fan of.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.